Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to another episode. So in this episode, we are going to be covering something that I'm incredibly excited, which is Maya's 2022 animation features. Autodesk has been kind enough to show me ahead of time in a confidential setting the new features of the new Maya, and I could not be more happy to show you guys what that is all about. We're going to be talking about 5 new features, and those features are features that I either been waiting for a long time, or it has surprised me and I didn't expect it, but now I feel like I need it. So let me show you guys what that is all about in this episode. Let's get started. So first and foremost, thanks to Autodesk, the sponsors of this video, because I feel like they actually knocked it out the park in this version of Maya 2022. So the 5 features that I'm going to talk to you about are going to be ghosting editor, there's going to be a bookmarks update, graph editors, additions to new filters. We're also going to be talking about the time editor version 2, something that actually will improve your animations and how you work with the time editor. And last but not least, we're going to be talking about Maya Cache Playback. So that's the 5 features. So let's get started and let me show you guys the time slider bookmarks version 3. This is the latest version and I think the additions are small but yet very important. Let's get to it. We have bookmarks since Maya 2020. Very awesome feature, helps a ton. So the way bookmarks work, obviously, if you for the ones that don't know, if you have a section of your animation that you want to bookmark, you just go like, this is an idle around there. So you kind of go, bookmarks are right here. I change, normally this time slider is on the bottom. You kind of click this button, it gives you this bookmark menu, and then you go loop into loop, something like that. You choose the color that you want your bookmarks in. Obviously, because I highlighted the bookmark, then I'll create it, and then you have the first bookmark. Maybe I want another one where I go from here to here. He's setting off, so I want another bookmark there. It was like into, and then I'm gonna go orange. And then from this point onwards, it's just gonna be run. Now, before, when you had your bookmarks, you could not change where they were unless you go back to your bookmark manager. If you click your bookmark, and then you go to bookmark manager, and then you actually change the numbers, right? If you right click edit, and then you go into, I wanna change this to start before or after. Now, that is obviously a little cumbersome, not super user-friendly, so what you can do now, which is really cool, is you press Control, your mouse will change to have this, which means that you can change your bookmark, you can move your bookmark to be in different places now. And this goes for any bookmark, you can change that. So, pretty cool. Now, what you can also do is change the length of the bookmark. Once again, if you press Control, and instead of being on top of the bookmark, you're actually more to the side of the bookmark, you can see that the cursor changes. You can change how long you want the bookmark on the fly, which is pretty nice. What's even better is that this is a feature that I'm really excited about. If you had to move your keys of any control, let's say you actually want to change the keys for everything in your rig, normally you have to go like this, and then you can move your keys, right? If you have your animation carefully bookmarked, and you have a beginning and end, now what you can do is actually, if you actually press here on the bookmark and double click, it highlights your bookmark keys. So you could do this before in the time editor, because if you actually double click anywhere, you select everything. However, you never had a way to select an area without specifically going from 40 to about 60, I want that area. Now, that even though that is fast and is fine, you could always go like this. I want to get there, and then I want to move my keys, fine. But since you already have a bookmark, it makes sense for you to be able to double click on your bookmark while pressing Control, and then select just what's selected, because that's what the bookmark is there for, to select your time range that you already have set. So that is a cool feature. I love it, and I think you guys are gonna like it too. Now, next, let's talk about ghosting. You guys are probably familiar with ghosting because if you actually go into any controller or any object, you could always go into visualize and then ghost select it. What that would give you is basically this little ghost here, and that moves really well and all that stuff. However, if you have used this before and your scene is heavy and you have more than one character, or you have like polygon heavy characters on the scene, you all know that Maya slows right down to the point that it's almost unusable. So since caching is here, now we have a way to actually have that information cached, which means that you can speed up your ghosting, which means that you can actually use your ghosting in a way that is really useful and in a way that everyone can actually basically use it for your animations. Now, that's fine because obviously you already have caching and everything's fine and all that stuff, so there's no slowdown. However, if you actually had to do ghosting every single time, you had to basically go to ghost or ghost selected, and you always had to go to the menu and in order to unghost the selected and then ghost again, or unghost all if you had many ghosts going along. Now you have something called ghosting editor. So finally we have a window here that allows us to do all this ghosting in one window while using caching. So because, as I mentioned before, things are much faster now you can ghost anything you want. So if I want to ghost this one and that one, you can just go create ghost from selection, and you're actually ghosting both controllers at the same time, which is pretty cool. Now this gives you extra flexibility because now, just like onion skinning, you can start getting like presets of how many keys do you want before and after. So 2 keys before and after, 4 keys before and after, 5 keys, 10s, or you can customize it to have any keys that you want pre-frame or after frame, just like an onion skin tool. So you can actually have like maybe 1 frame or 2 frames before and 5 frames after, because you're focusing on going forward. So you can actually make sure that you have that there. So like, or something like this, right? So you have like 3 keys in front, frame step, all good. It's actually super useful to actually kind of get this. Now, whenever you actually have your ghosts selected, you can always select them by your, if you have hierarchy. In this case I had hierarchy selected, I didn't have to, but basically anything that you selected before, in this case was just actually the control shape that I wanted. You can basically go, I want to unghost this. So you unghost that controller because it was getting too busy. Now you only have 1 controller ghosted, and that's more than enough for now. You can also, as you can see here, you can also like have ghost previous, or ghost the keys after, or you can ghost both to make sure that everything is selected on both, so front and back, or just front or just back. You can also select specific frames to ghost, or, which is even better, you can just ghost the keyframed frames, right? And this is interesting because, as you can see here, you can see the whole ghost of the whole animation of that one arm as it's going through it. And you can see like easily so you can see easily your arcs, what's working, what's not, all that good stuff. The best thing is, like, if I actually go ahead and unghost all, you can unghost anything. So it could be a sphere, it can be a locator. So I'm just gonna like give you guys an example of a locator here to make sure that you guys see what I mean. I could obviously ghost this arrow, or to make it clear, I could, if I put a locator on that position and that locator is following the action, let me just grab the locator and make it a little bit bigger. So now that locator is following that arrow, which is following the position of the hand. And as you can see, the information is being baked into that arrow, into that locator, and is following 1 to 1. Now I do this because I want to make sure that I can follow the locator and I don't want to follow the arrow, because the locator now has the information without having any influences by any other controller. It's not part of the rig, it's actually exterior, it's world space. So I'm confident at this point that that locator has all the information that I want. At that point I can go create ghost from selection, And once I have that ghosting, at this point I'm actually ghosting before and after, you can see that the locator, the information before and after, is basically following through whatever you had before. Because I had that information on custom, that I wanted 1 frame before and 3 frames after, you can see that there's 1 locator there and there's 1, 2, 3 locators after. So I can always like increase that number, so you can have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And the frame stepping that I have, that I want to actually get to that point, is 1 frame only. I can actually increase that to have more frames in between. So basically that would be on 4s, right? Or this will be on 1s or 2s. So that's basically the information that you can get from ghosting. Works beautifully. As you can tell, it's only a locator, but if I press this, my goal or my set frame rate is 30 frames, and you can see that it's not slowing down whatsoever, and it's actually calculating things in real time, which is amazing. So that's basically ghosting. You have a few more options, like you can change the colors to actually be more visible. So for example, this color is not super visible on my viewport right now, so I'm gonna like add it to be pink. That is a little bit more visible in my viewport, so that perhaps will be better for me. You can actually change the opacity to make sure that the opacity slightly changes, so the near opacity can be 1. That is really nice. And then the far opacity, which is the one that actually, the keys that are actually further away from the action, are a little bit more like faded as you go through, right? So you can get that feeling, that onion skin feeling, that is really, really nice. So that is basically what ghosting is and what ghosting gives you in Maya 2022. Now let's talk about the graph editor, filters and auto tangents. Filters and types of curves, obviously as an animator, is your bread and butter. This is what you use day in, day out as you're animating, as you're actually crafting your animations. So if you go to rotates, obviously you get the usual like Euler, the worst thing possible ever for an animator. So you get like this gimbal, and obviously you can go into Euler to make sure that now you no longer have the gimbal. However, as you can see here, you still have lots of noise in this mocap data, which makes you feel like you need to go in deeper to make sure that it's clean. Now, peak removal, like basically erases these peaks and valleys that you get for one key, which are completely weird and like not needed whatsoever. So what normally people would do is actually go in and start deleting all the peaks like this to make sure that you don't have any of that. Now with a peak remover filter, I'm just gonna go back a little bit so you can see, you can get rid of that by just clicking one button, which works much better. So if you actually select this area, as you can see, is a bit dirty, go to peak removal, look at what happens. It's pretty cool. So let's move on to tangents. So these tangents, the new tangents that you get in Maya, are absolutely brilliant, and I really like where they're going with this, because they're giving the end user, us animators, much more flexibility when it comes to actually how you can actually apply these tangents. So I think this is going to reduce the amount of plugins that you probably get in order to get better tangents here and there, and the default tangent should help you out much more than before. So I have some examples here where the foot is unstepped. So the way you normally would do this is by basically selecting the keys, all the keys or just a section of the keys, and click on your old trusty auto tangent. So what you get is something like this. So that looks all right already, but what I'm gonna do next is basically go into curves and buffer curve and snapshot. So for those that don't know, a snapshot just basically gives you like an example of what the curve was doing before, and as you change the curve, you can always go here and go to curves and then go back to swap curves, and then you go back to what it was before, and that actually helps you a lot because it means that you can actually see the before and after. But for now, we actually have what we had before, which is basically this curve here that got me onto auto tangent. So this is pretty good, but as you will see now, if I actually click on the new curve, which is called auto ease, this fellow right here, you get a much better interpolation between keys. So check this out. As you go here on the curve, can you see that actually, like, between the buffer that you had before and now, you can see that interpolation between the keys is much cleaner. See, you actually get a little bit of an ease out going in instead of actually having that interpolation between the two keys being more linear, which is one of the things that people used to complain so much about auto tangents. So you get a much better interpolation between the two keys. Now you also have auto mix. And if I click on auto mix, once again, selecting my curves, or selecting my keys, I should say, and press auto mix, you get a little bit more of a conservative curve. So I'm just gonna do it again so you can see that? It's a little bit more conservative. And what this is basically a mix between the new auto ease and the old auto tangent. So this is really useful because obviously it gives you like somewhere in between. So if you don't want your curves to be as extreme as before, so if you actually like the auto tangents and you like the results of auto tangents, you just go auto mix, which gives you a little bit of in between the old and the new. And if you actually want just the new stuff, then you just click auto ease, and then it gives you better eases going in and out between keys. You have a new tangent as well called auto custom. And what auto custom gives you, if you go into your tangents and click on this new auto, which gives you options between the new and the old, you can see auto custom. And a little note here, auto tangent is now called auto span, which is called legacy, but it's the same thing really. But if you go to auto custom and you go to option, you get this little window here that gives you tangent options. So if you leave it like this at 0.5, it means that your auto custom is going to be something similar to the auto ease. So if I press apply, you can see here you get something very similar to the auto ease. If I click the button, I get the same thing. If I go the opposite way, so just 1, you get something that actually is not really auto tangent, but is getting much closer to what the auto tangent does. Now you can start playing with these numbers to kind of like give you something more or less of what you want. And this way you can create your own tangent that gives you a little bit more or a little bit less ease between two keys, gives you a much more cleaner curve when you're cleaning up your keys and actually cleaning up your animation. I think this is going to be great for all animators out there that actually want to make sure that they have options when it comes to cleaning up keys. And if you actually want the granular effect to your keys to make sure that you also get the best of both worlds, then this is going to be a really, really nice addition to your tool belt as an animator. Check it out, I think it's going to be awesome. Now let's move on to the time editor. For this, I'm going to open up a new scene that I have here that will basically give you something very simple. So I'm not going to go deep into the time editor, but I think this will give you guys an idea of what the time editor can do and will do, and that is different on this. So I have basically 2 clips here. One of them obviously is a girl actually kind of walking around looking cool as she goes about her business. So this is basically the first clip is playing here. It's a raw clip, it's not additive, it's just raw. So you have now blending mode. It's almost like layering, animation layers. Whenever you actually kind of layer an animation on top of the other, you can have it either normal or additive, right? So the beauty of it is that I have another clip here that I muted that basically has upper body animation only. Now I must apologize because this is not the best animation. I just like move the arms a little bit on the upper body, and the lower body is not matching 1-to-1. But what this will give you is an idea that if you have a base layer that is doing something, you can actually load another clip within the same animation and get the animation to do something different. This also can be blended, so between clips, so you can actually kind of get the animation to start doing something completely different at slightly different points. You can also change the modes. Instead of being additive, it can be normal, so you can have 2 clips on top of each other being normal. Obviously, that actually gives you, like in this case, very mixed results because you don't really get much of an additive on top. But you can start to see the benefit of using this, right? So within this menu, as you guys had before, You can obviously trim and clip and merge and group and all that good stuff, right? So this is still the same. This is basically the best way for you guys to bring mocap clips. So with mocap clips, it's especially important because sometimes you have to blend clips that do different things, or sometimes, for example, in games that I've worked on before, you have a guy walking with an AK-47 weapon. That weapon has certain dimensions, and then you change that weapon to a weapon that is slightly bigger. So the hands are in a slightly different position now than they were before. So you have two clips that are very similar, but now you have to go into Maya to actually make sure they tweak the positions of the hands. This way is much easier. As long as you have the underlying animation with the correct position of the hands, you can actually just go in here, make sure that you add it as an additive layer, and those hands will start coming up to the place that you want it to be. You can bake that information out and then work from there. And that is really, really powerful. So having a blending mode on this time editor is like yet another step in the right direction in my view. And I think people that actually work with mocap day in, day out, animation clips, they need to be merged. This is gonna be, once again, a godsend because whenever, for example, you work in games, you have like hundreds and hundreds of animation clips, and towards the end of the game, normally you wanna reuse as many things as possible so you don't have to actually do the expensive mocap shoots. This way is an amazing way for you to blend a few clips together and get a brand new animation out of existing clips. So I hope that makes sense, and I hope that helps you guys and get you guys as hype as I am to use it. Now, last but not least, let's talk about cached playback. I actually had a word with Autodesk about this feature, and it's something that, although it seems incredibly simple, a lot goes on under the hood to make sure that this runs as smooth as possible. And based on what Autodesk told me, a lot of their engineers spend a lot of time making sure that cached playback is now better than ever. It gives us, the animators, the best frames per second that we can possibly get. And now it's up to a point that you no longer have to play blast anymore. You can just press the play button and actually get your desired frames per second. So I'm just going to show you guys here on this example of the scene that you guys might remember from way back in the day when I started YouTube on this God of War piece that I did quickly. If I press play, look at the bottom right corner right here, and you can see that it's about 15-16 frames per second at best, right? So a lot is going on in the scene. This computer is actually quite powerful that I have right now. It's a tower PC, lots of power right now. It's made to use Maya, and I'm still just getting 15 frames per second. Now, this is obviously not the ideal frame rate that you want here, right? But once again, cached playback comes to the rescue. Now, getting cached playback running is super easy. You just go here to this button right there, cached playback toggle, and you press it. And you can see here on the bottom, the bar starts filling up. Now that's your cache right now. So if you press play now, you can see once again, bottom right corner, that I'm getting about 23-24 frames per second. It's pretty much exactly what I want for this scene because I have set it up for 20 frames per second. So at this point, you can see that it's much smoother, much better, and I basically don't have to play blast anything anymore because I can see my animation exactly as I want to see it in real time, which is beautiful. So one thing to note is that if you go up here to your button to actually toggle your cache playback, when you right click, at the moment I'm getting the old version of the options here. You should, on Maya 2022, you should have an option for playback speed. I was demoed that option by Autodesk. It's very impressive because what you can do is basically go to that option and then basically set your cache free. And when you press play, your cache playback will go up to the max it can possibly go to. So I saw a scene that was supposed to be at 24 frames per second, just like mine, go up to about 110, 120 frames per second when it was free cache playback, which showcases the power of this. It's really cool. Now, something else that I've noticed as well, I believe this is new, is that if you actually change your evaluation, cache to viewport software cache, your cache starts forming from the point that you are on the timeline, which is pretty cool. And if you actually move your timeline, it stops and it starts kind of like evaluating as you scrub your timeline. So much more like a editing, a video editing software that I use normally all the time, Final Cut Pro or Premiere, which is all good. That stuff is beautiful. So this is basically what you get now with Cache Playback, and I'm really loving it. It's getting better by the version, and I hope you guys enjoy it as much as I am. Those are the 5 features that actually blew my mind the most, and the things that I enjoy the most, the things that I can see myself using all the time. So I feel like the ghosting editor, we can finally have the feel of flipping between 3D, flipping between poses as you go through your animation, and it's not heavy on your scene because of caching. So it's like a 2-in-1 punch. Amazing stuff. Then we have the time slider bookmarks. Now we have a little bit of an improvement when it comes to actually updating your bookmarks on the go. Make sure that they select an area, keys, and you can move your keys along with your bookmarks, which is a blessing once again. And then you have the graph editor. So I think that is one of the biggest feature right there, because you get new tangents and new filters for you to sort out your keys much easier. You also obviously have the time editor. So the time editor is going to be great for people that do a lot of mocap work with different animation clips. And then finally you have the updated cache playback that now gives you super fast cache to the point that you don't even have to play blast anymore, which is again amazing. The amount of things that animators get nowadays to make sure that Maya is pretty much invisible and you just can get there and be creative, it's really cool. I feel kind of a little bit jealous of all the animators that want to start animating now because of the amount of tools and the amount of improvements that Maya has done over the years, especially for us. I also want to thank Autodesk, everyone that actually made this happen behind the scenes, because I know that this is a lot of engineering, a lot of maths, a lot of hard work from everybody in the animation team at Autodesk. Special shout out to Mark Tanner, the head of animation at Autodesk. I know he's been working super hard for these features to come to you guys. And most importantly, let me know down in the comments, what do you think about these features? What are the features that you're most looking forward to out of these 5 features that I just showcased in this video? Also, let me know what kind of features I'm missing. What kind of features would you guys like in the future? Because I know that, Autodesk and other people actually read these comments, so there's nothing better than you guys kind of giving feedback, constructive feedback that is, about what is missing, what you guys would like to be implemented, what can be better, and what can make our life a little bit easier on the next version. That's all I had for you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I certainly have, as usual. If you haven't subscribed just yet, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button as well, and stay tuned for the next video. It's always awesome to be here with you guys, and until the next video, stay well, stay safe, peace.